Howdy, folks, and welcome to the 8:30 Live, now at 9. I can't remember if we said yesterday that I wasn't doing Fridays, but I know I'm not doing weekends. However, it's torrential rains out there, so I figure I will, I might as well do it tonight because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. I'm a little hungry, but, I'll get to it. That being said, not too much happened in the news today, although there was one really big thing, which, thanks to Simon Sachs, I know about. It just happened, and that is the commutation of Roger Stone's sentence. So let's talk about this for a second. Hey, Simon, how's it going? Good to see you. You might remember Roger Stone. Roger Stone is a Trump associate who was dragged out of his house in the wee hours of the morning by the FBI on camera. Trump thought that that was a sign that the government was being very harsh. I should say the deep state, because Trump, for some reason, even though being president, doesn't understand that he represents the government as well, and that the prosecutors and the police forces that operate under him are also carrying out the laws which he's supposed to be undergirding. But regardless, he took that as a sign that the government was being very, very harsh on Roger Stone, and he complained vociferously through all of Roger Stone's trial that Roger Stone is being treated very, very unfairly. Now, if you happen to have Netflix, I highly recommend. It's Friday, it's raining, whatever, or this weekend, go check out Get Me Roger Stone. It's an amazing documentary. I honestly didn't know who Roger Stone was until I watched that documentary, and people would tell me about the documentary and assume that because I was in politics, I must know who Roger Stone is because he's such a prominent and flamboyant figure. But I didn't. But my friend actually made this documentary. I also didn't know that my friend was a documentarian until this came out. But I watched Get Me Roger Stone, and it was eye-opening. This man is the quintessential operative. And one of the stories, aside from the Roger Stone story of Get Me Roger Stone, is that the Republicans actually invest pretty heavily in bringing up the next generation of Republicans. They have a lot of money into the young Republicans, and you can track back the histories of several very, very prominent Republican leaders and operatives to the young Republicans. You can't really say the same for the young Democrats and the Democratic Party for all of its talk about engaging the youth and how it's the party of young people. It doesn't actually do much to help young people learn the skills that they need to succeed in politics, nor resource the organizations that are, in theory, there to organize people. The young folk are just sort of left to it, and I would know this firsthand, having been vice president of the Young Democrats of America and, a regional leader in New York and what have you. But I've seen it at every level, and the Republicans handle it much differently. And that's why folks like Roger Stone have documentaries about them. And you probably can't point to a young Democrat who went on to be of national prominence. There have been 2 or 3 young Republican presidents who went on to be president, not so with the Young Democrats of America. But I digress. So Roger Stone, as you might recall, was one of the associates on the Trump campaign who got picked up by the FBI, and Trump had to distance himself from Stone. And the big thing was that Roger Stone lied to the FBI about having contact with WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was the organization which ended up I just took a shower, so my hair is wet and drying. It's really weird. Well, it's not weird. You've seen it before. It's annoying to me. It's in this weird phase. Anyway, WikiLeaks is the organization that dumped the DNC emails and Hillary's emails during the 2016 election. And when folks were trying to figure out, they were investigating how those emails ended up getting hacked. They obviously looked at the Trump campaign and Roger Stone. And Stone told the feds that he had no contact with anybody at WikiLeaks, which turned out to be false, and that he had no contact about that with the Trump campaign, which also turned out to be false. So he was caught on 2 counts of lying to the FBI, perjury, and he was sentenced to jail. Hello, Rick. How's it going? Yeah, good to see you. So throughout all of this, so where was I? Yeah, so Stone ends up, this is different from the Michael Flynn case, by the way, which is also a whole thing. But so throughout the trial, Trump saying that Roger Stone is being treated very unfairly. Roger Stone gets convicted and sentenced. And now, throughout the pandemic, Roger Stone has been making the case that he shouldn't have to turn himself over and go into custody because he's an at-risk population. He had asthma as a child. He's over 67. And so he's an at-risk population. He shouldn't go to jail where the coronavirus is raging. He's had several stays of his order to hand himself in, but the last one was refused by the judge, basically saying, it's time for you to go to jail. So Trump has decided to commute the sentence. Now, what is commutation? How is it different from pardoning? Well, basically, pardoning would say, Roger Stone doesn't have to do any time. Commuting is saying that Roger Stone's going to get a lesser sentence. And what Trump has decided to do, this is very tricky. Roger Stone has effectively been under not effectively. Roger Stone has been under house arrest, awaiting the time when he turns himself into authorities to be put in jail. Donald Trump is effectively saying that Roger Stone has served his time under house arrest and that this is counting as time served and commuting the sentence so that all of the time that he spent under house arrest is the entirety of his sentence. So Roger Stone, though convicted and though sentenced to, I think, 6 to 7 years, has now effectively served a few months of house arrest, and the commutation means that his punishment is over and he is now a free man. Now, the press release that came out of the White House is absolutely bonkers, talking about how the Mueller report was a scam, how Russia was a hoax, how the prosecutors went after him very unfairly. This is not the purview of the President of the United States. Like, there was a trial, there was a judge, and right now Roger Stone is appealing his case. Wait, am I getting this right? No, he had to appeal. He was going to appeal the order to return himself in, but now I guess he's just off the hook, and it's just absolutely egregious. It's so freaking incredible and disgusting and just mind blowing that you could have somebody sentenced of a federal crime, go through an entire judicial process, have judge, jury, prosecution, and defense, have somebody convicted, have them sentenced to jail, and then have the president come in and say that they served a couple of months of house arrest, so their time has been served, they're commuting their sentence. Honestly, there's a theory that Trump doesn't know how to be loyal, but I don't know what he gets out of this. So that, the loyalty that Trump has for his people is finally starting to show. I guess maybe he's realized he can't cut everybody loose. It's just too dangerous. That being said, it's absolutely disgusting how this went down. And we just got to wait and see what happens with Michael Flynn. I sincerely, this is not the kind of thing that's going to hurt him with his base. It is only the kind of thing that's going to hurt him with Democrats who think that Roger Stone was properly convicted, which he was. Not Democrats, but Americans who believe in the rule of law. Who knows how swing voters will take it? I suppose they'll take it negatively because there was a trial, there was evidence presented, and they probably don't like the hurting of the rule of law any more than most of the rest of us. But honestly, I don't know what to say beyond this. It's an absolutely ridiculous, nonsensical situation. But that's Trump's presidency, folks. Michael Kaplan. I realized that something was wrong when all the experienced political hands around Trump were Nixon 40 or GOP operatives. Indeed. For most of a generation, those guys were albatross because of their questionable ethics. Then, surprise, surprise, Trump brings them back, and Nixon-esque dirty tricks made a reappearance as well. Not about dirty tricks. How about just unethical, borderline illegal tricks? They're not even tricks. The founders really, I don't think, expected it to go this far, but maybe they made some. Why give the president? That's what I kind of want to know. The executive has the power to pardon, but the judiciary is its own independent branch of the government. And amongst the various things, there's a very well set process for appeals. Judges have fairly, I guess it's opaque mechanisms by which they take the bench, but there are political processes I want to say guarantee, but not guarantee, to try and ensure that good judges are seated and you have juries. Why should an executive be able to override the entire legal process at the end of the game? Now, you see me looking around for something. I'm looking for my freaking book that has the things that I want to talk about, of which there were only 2 today. But that doesn't include the stone thing. So now, does anybody see it? Does anybody see my? Oh, there it is. No, it's not. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Thanks. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. What were the other things to talk about today? Boom. Nothing. I didn't write them down because there was so little talk. And I also didn't think I was going to do the live today, but then it's raining. Anyway, whatever. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm not doing the live this weekend. I'm taking Saturdays and Sundays off from now on. Maybe even Fridays if the weather is nice. Oh, but when it's not raining tomorrow, maybe, or not raining on Sunday, go out right after sunset and look for the comet. That should be appearing pretty soon. Actually, it's a July 13th onward thing. Never mind. What do I know? Hurry, it's in the fire behind you. Thanks, Mike. Anyway, let's talk about beans. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I will say is apparently Goya is canceled now because the CEO of Goya likes Donald Trump and was very vocal about it. And so no more Goya, which is, I think, ridiculous. It's very odd to me that brands that serve a certain segment of the population would support a president who is obviously against the interests of their consumers. Now, for those who are fans of the program, I posted up about this on Facebook, and somebody sort of took umbrage. A white woman who is married to a Latino took umbrage at the fact that folks are calling on people to boycott, and maybe they don't appreciate that it's not easy to boycott all of the main purveyor of all of the foods that you're used to eating and that are seminal to your culture. But my post wasn't like boycott Goya. My post was, if you're boycotting Goya, guess what? Trader Joe's has organic beans for 99 cents and inorganic beans, non-organic beans, for 89 cents. And per ounce is basically the same as Goya. For those fans of the program, I eat beans all the time, like they're my staple product. I think Mexican food is probably my favorite type of food. It's just such a nice combination of flavors and really just things I like to eat. Beans, eggs, I can get by without meat, rice, cheese. Anyway, the point is that Goya is apparently canceled. It's canceled again because its CEO supports Trump, who is very much against the main consumer base of Goya products. And what I would have to say to you is, if you purchase Goya products, try and find a substitute. It's not that hard. People are saying, oh, it's so difficult, to diversify, but it's not. Beans are they're less than a dime a dozen. They're like a penny a dozen, not even. They're out there. Just go get them. And then I had people come on my page and be like, oh, Ben, you should have dried beans. Listen, I don't need your beans advice, okay? I've got 25 pounds of dried beans in the case that the apocalypse actually hits. But otherwise, I think I'm good with my bean process. I know what I'm doing. I buy a lot of beans. Soaking beans is a hassle. Oh, yeah, use an Instapot. Okay, well, you want to give me an Instapot, fine. But, I got a system. I have a system. That being said, people are like, oh, they buy Saison or seasoning. That's Goya. Well, there's lots of great recipes out there for seasoning, and it's a lot cheaper than buying the pre-made stuff. So, check out your local grocery store. I'm sure there's lots of options for beans, and they're all pretty decently priced. I happen to throw up the prices for Trader Joe's beans because I know them off the top of my head, but I have bought Goya beans in a pinch when the line at Trader Joe's was too long. And guess what? I've done the mathematical calculation. At least in New York City, the Goya bean cans are slightly larger. and slightly fuller than the Trader Joe's beans. However, even though they're larger, they cost $1.50. So they are essentially 50 cents more than the Trader Joe's cans. And that's the organic cans, mind you. And so at that price, they basically come out to be the same per ounce, and that's for the organic. That's for Trader Joe's organic to Goya non-organic. Thusly, there are lots of options for how you can get your beans on and how you can get your rice on. By the way, rice, folks, if you're buying Goya rice, I don't know what you're doing. There are deals on rice all over the place, and the average bag of rice costs about $1 per pound. So 25-pound bag of rice, $25. If you are doing your research and finding your sales, you can probably find a bag of rice that is 50 or 60 cents per pound of rice. I haven't paid more than 60 cents for a pound of rice for a long time. Now, I will say that the Associated, where I used to get all my sweet deals on rice, has now completely gone out of business and closed, which makes me sad. And I have been looking around for my next huge bag of rice, but I will routinely buy 25-pound or 50-pound bags of rice for $15 and $26 respectively. You know, so Goya, even though I understand that it's ubiquitous, there are not only substitutes, but sometimes they're better deals. So I would encourage folks to look for that because Goya's trash. Okay, a couple of comments here. So Rick Echevarria was going to ask about the Goya boycott, and he put some more comments, but to go in order, Simon Sack, where can we buy beans wholesale, not Goya? Best price per can, per case. Trader Joe's has the best price per can that I've seen. Although people keep telling me about these 60-cent cans. I don't know where you're getting that. Not in Manhattan, I'll tell you that much. And then, of course, there's Costco. There's the bulk. BJ's is the place that has the best rice. You need a membership to BJ's, but BJ's right now I've seen has the 50 cents, 60 cents per pound. If anybody has a BJ's membership and would let me use it, let me know. Michael Kaplan. Speaking of white women, the Central Park Coopers are no longer angry at each other, apparently. I don't know if they're no longer angry at each other, but Mr. Cooper does not think that it's helpful, considering Miss Cooper lost her job and whatever else she suffered. He doesn't think that he's not taking a punitive approach. Now, I understand that lots of other folks want to see this woman punished, but ultimately, restorative justice, 360 accountability, all of these ideas aren't about punishment. And, you know, all of this about defund the police and decarceration, you know, punishment shouldn't be the model by which we do criminal justice or justice generally. Justice is about rehabilitation. Justice is about many other things than making somebody suffer. Now, whether or not Central Park Karen, as she's known, or Miss Cooper, should be prosecuted, should be put in jail, or should face fines, that's, you know, everybody can have their own opinion on that. But I would just ask people, when they're coming to that conclusion, whether or not they think it serves the interest of justice, and whether or not this is about making her suffer as much as possible, or making an example of her, or actually trying to help somebody move on with their life and not be racist. Because I think we can all agree that she did the wrong thing. I think we can likewise say that she did something really racist and dangerous. The question is, what is the proper response to that? Now, we have laws against these things. In fact, there was just a law that was passed by the state legislature, and the point of the laws are to be used. So I think one could argue that she should be prosecuted for this, and that we need to make it clear that these sorts of laws are on the book and they exist for a reason, and that they will be enforced, and that you should not make light of them or think that you can get away with things. For that reason, I think it does kind of make sense to follow through on this. But that being said, Mr. Cooper has made the decision that he's not in it for the punitive punishment of this woman. Rick Echevarria, Goya is a diabetes production company. Yeah, they make a lot of like they put stuff in their products to like flavor it up. So I don't really know, like I don't eat Goya and I don't really buy their products. Certainly, I like the organic beans from Trader Joe's because they have nothing in them. And when I do buy Goya beans, when I bought them the first time, I was looking at my bean options when I couldn't get to TJ's, and I was looking at what's in them, and there are things in their products like preservatives and such, and so I'm not a fan of that. As for their other products, I don't know if they probably do add sugar to all sorts of things. Sugar is a very common additive because it makes things addictive. Humans like sugar. Simon Sachs, Rick Echevarria, what is a diabetes production company? To which Rick says, Goya's processed beans and other processed items are a recipe for diabetes. Yes. I don't do the refried beans, mind you. Whole beans only. And yeah, I get it. The dry beans that you soak are healthier. Okay, we all have our limits, and convenience is a thing. It's cheaper. And listen, I want to do it, but then I feel like I really need a big water filter so that I can only use filtered water on my beans. Anyway, whatever. I won't get into it. My friend suggested that I post once a week about beans. I might do that. I have an idea for my next bean post. Simon Sachs, who started Bean Collective and a rice collective. Well, growing beans is not that difficult, but you need space to do it. Growing enough beans to feed me every night would be extremely difficult. And rice, forget about it. Rice cultivation is no joke. You need rice paddies. It's very intensive, even though you get a lot of rice out of it. So I think it'd be difficult to start a rice collective. Simon Sachs, how many carbs? Beans do have a decently high degree of carbs, actually. Not a ridiculous amount of carbs, at least not in my opinion. But I do know folks who are like, beans have too many carbs, and I've looked at the stats on the back of the can, but I think it's fine. And I have to imagine they're like good carbs. They're not sugars, or they're not the type that are going to cause insulin spikes, right? It's low glycemic. But I guess that's just me being a bean booster. I actually don't know the answer to that. Anyway, I was going to cut the show off before we started talking about beans, and you all know I love beans and could go on and on about them. But now we're at the end of the comments, and all this talk of beans has made me hungry. So I want to thank everybody who tuned in. It's always a pleasure to see you and to have a chat. And enjoy your weekend. I will see you on Monday at 9 o'clock. Until then.